For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nancy Travis, and I'm the current president of the Wellesley Society of Artists. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Wellesley Society of Artists, I'd like to tell you a little bit about it. It is a nonprofit organization with over 120 members from the Metro Boston area and beyond. The WSA supports and encourages local artists while promoting the fine arts in the community through juried exhibitions, artist demonstrations, and educational programs. And the WSA is over 90 years old. We welcome new members. We welcome new members and that are interested in learning more about us or want to participate in our activities. There's a sign-up sheet over here if you want to leave your email, and we'll be sure to find you. Thank you. So also on your seat, you will find a postcard inviting you to the opening reception of the WSA Art and Ornament Sale on the evening of December 4th at the new Wellesley History and Exhibit Center. There are limited tickets, so I hope you will drop by for some cheer and see more art. And we're also selling hand-painted ornaments to benefit the Wellesley History Center. The WSA's annual November Library Show is probably our most popular. There are always lots of people to thank for making this show possible. So if I've missed anyone in advance, I apologize. Show chairs, Kristen Conant and Pilar Figuera, as well as Mike Murphy, Sam Io, Liz Gorman, and Lori Hill Dunning. We are also thankful to the library for partnering with us today and their ongoing support of our programs. Each June, the WSA gives the WSA Art Achievement Award to 2 rising seniors at the Wellesley High School who have demonstrated merit and dedication to their practice of art and art studies. As part of the award, the WSA invites the students to participate in our annual library show. This year's recipients are Ayla Lynn and Dylan Kim, and you can see their amazing paintings at the entrance of the Wakeland Room. Please join me in congratulating Dylan and Ayla. Well done. And thank you for coming. Finally, the awards for the annual library show. I'm thrilled to have the judge of this show, Patrick McKay, artist and educator, who is here to share his choices with you. Before we begin, it is common to give a brief bio of the show judge. In Patrick's case, his education and professional career are quite extensive, so I'll give you a few highlights of his illustrious career. He earned his undergraduate and graduate degrees in fine arts from the Glasgow School of Art, followed by a second master's degree from the University of Notre Dame. His paintings draw inspiration from various expressionist groups and often exist in the space between what is abstract and real in an effort to capture and translate inspiring scenes in original ways. He has exhibited internationally, and his paintings are in public and private collections, from the Royal Bank of Scotland to Her Royal Highness Princess Margaret. His academic and artistic career includes leadership in faculty positions in the UK and the US. And currently, he is senior professor at the Institute of Art and Design at the New England College in Henniker, New Hampshire. Is that right? Patrick has written a juror's statement that I urge everyone to read. I'm going to be leaving that outside in front of the artwork in the foyer, as well as on the table at the entrance to the Wakeland Room. So I'd like to welcome Patrick for the announcement of the judges.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, WSA. I will be brief. In the UK, we tend to invite the jurors to the receptions. It's not that common, but we do it because you put the person on the spot. And you allow them to mix and mingle with, because it's all about visual education. First of all, congratulations to all of you WSA people who took part in the show, because that's the important thing, seeing your work in the context of an exhibition, because you'll learn something, you see things. And I would ask you to try slowly to look beyond the obvious. I have juried more shows than I want to mention, and always there is a beautiful, stunning technical stuff. It's really good. And this exhibition, by the way, reflects a lot of what we refer to as the mechanical obedience to the medium, but also highly creative, fluent, gifted marks and abstraction. And this was a pretty difficult show to try and get right. But anyway, when you enter a show, as the artists here know, you send in your work, your slides, and they're juried in. I know this is a member show, so if you're a member, you're in the show, correct? Right. But you've also, I'm sure, taken part in shows that you send in your slide, your digital slide, which a lot of people hate doing, but you send it in, you don't see it 3 or 4 weeks. If the juror accepts your work, boy, that person really knows what they're doing. If you are rejected, they have no idea what they're doing. And if you win a prize, the individuals are God, you know. Right, so it's never easy. But yeah, I would, and thank Nancy for, read the juror statement. It will give you some clues to, you know, what we tend to do in England and in a lot of shows. And I'm encouraging WSA to do this. Get the juror to the opening, to the reception. Go after people who will come, take time, and, you know, because you pay for this, you know, and thank you for the honorarium. So it's just part of the sharing, right? Part of the education. So I will begin with the honorable mentions and keep the tension going. So the first honorable mention is a pastel landscape by Martha Marson. Is Martha here? Yeah. Yeah, come up and get your $4,000, you know. Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't have time to talk about all the ones. I will talk about a few things, but it's a little tricky, and I know some of you are waiting to begin the figure navigation, the human figure. Second one, Rolling Hills. It's an oil painting by Dottie Loughlin. Dottie, you here? Yeah. A watercolor, honorable mention, My Living Room by Joanna Dole. Joanna here? Good. And another watercolor, The Brook Path by acrylic actually, Dale Bodnar. Dale, you here? Yeah. The watercolors, and I'll try and speak to in a minute, actually opened up a great opportunity because technically they were really fluent, very capable. But the one that I chose is one of the prizes. And it may baffle some of you, I don't know, but this is what I mean by looking beyond the obvious. You know, you've all had the opportunity, you walk into a gallery, museum, and you see a painting, you just see something, you immediately, I've got to go see that one, right? I do this with our students all the time. They'll go, yeah, I know. You're walking past some really nice work, but you have to go see that, something connected to you, right? Are you with me? And that's really important. So when I came here, Nancy will tell you, you go around the whole show once, you go around the whole thing again. What begins to connect to you? And it's kind of what you do, and then you revisit. So the watercolors, technically, were really fluent. I was impressed. Anyway, let me get to that. Oh, yeah. No, I'm good. Thank you. Third place goes to Safe Harbor Oil Metha. She here. Or is not here. So someone else can get her $4,000. Margaret Fitzwilliam is the award for Best Watercolor. Waves Breaking. She here? Really? You can. Thank you. Yeah. See, and that watercolor is right over here in the middle, at the top, and it probably will be a a little baffling to some people. And Nancy asked me this question, Patrick, why? I studied very traditionally, very academically, very classically, in one of the last bastions of European academies in Scotland, the Glasgow School of Art, some of you may know. So you really learn how to do things. But eventually, in my opinion, just my opinion, you begin to try and get beyond the mechanical thing. Start looking, it's the whole reason Picasso was Picasso. Anyway, I don't have time to go into the art history of it. But that piece, you know, the fluency, the confidence, you know, it smacked more of, you know, your John Singer Sargent, your Winslow Homer, in its confidence, in its brushstroke stuff. So often jurors will look for something that gets beyond the obvious. Anyway, yeah, the Yale Nichols Award for Best Interpretation of the Natural World. This was a tough one, but it goes to Ocean Grass, pastel by Sheila Davis. Sheila here? No? And the second place goes to Composition 7, Acrylic by Judith Snyder. Is Judith here? Yeah? Yeah, very nice piece, very sensitive. A lot of people also wouldn't quite see that in my, you know, just my opinion, by the way. They may struggle. I'm sure people have looked at your work sometimes. But that's what I mean about going into a gallery museum. You see this large piece, looks like a dog's breakfast, and you're going, really? And then you find out it was 4.9 million for that piece. And you are baffled. And you think, yeah, seriously, I mean, this is what, and unfortunately I don't have time to go into all, but you need to get beyond the obvious. Draw the analogy with music. And I do this with my students, okay, you ask the students to pick up a rock band, an interesting, unusual, they'll go for Guns N' Roses or something heavy or whatever, right? You bring your mum, your dad, your cat, your grandmother. You're in the front row. On comes Guns N' Roses, they start playing. Cat runs out, your great aunt faints. You know, you're sitting loving it. What just happened? How come? Grandma didn't really like it. Your cat didn't like it. Your great aunt Margaret didn't like it. What happened? Are you pretending? You go down that conversation. You eventually get to the word experience and exposure. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go into it all, but think about it. So we are now at the first place, and this is given because of the technical fluency. It's highly beautiful, and I hope you look at these different pieces because they are very varied in my choices. So it goes to Shelter and Fly, Color Pencil by Deborah Friedman. Technically beautiful. It's what in the UK, in terms of the medium, we would refer to that piece as highly fluent and gifted, you know? But I would also encourage you, because that was a beautiful piece. And you know when you do the next one, you can almost do it before you start. And some are better than others. I would challenge you, blunt some of your pencils. Get more expressive, seriously, and see what happens. Anyway, I think that's the final one, is it? So look, it's been a dream. So I'm going to stay around. If any of you want to talk to me about the whys or whatever, I'll be happy to. Thank you very much indeed, Nancy. My pleasure.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bob Glowacki. I'm a member of the Wellesley Society of Artists. And actually, I've been studying with Ron for the past maybe 7 years or so at the Danforth School. And it's really a treat to see a bunch of fellow classmates here. I think you're going to see in the demo today, Ron just has such a wonderful style. He's a phenomenal mentor. He's a lovely person, and it's a real treat being in his class. I know people want to start sketching, so I'm going to speak quickly, and I'll just be brief. Ron grew up in Maplewood, New Jersey, exit 17 off the Garden State for those of us tri-staters. And he had a great 6th grade teacher who allowed him to opt out of certain classwork about Greek and Roman times to draw pictures of Greek statues in the back of the classroom. And I think we never forget those teachers that really fostered your creativity and what an impact they made on us. In high school, he took classes at the Art Students League in New York, and at Brandeis, he majored in art and psychology, mostly influenced by Michael Major and mostly working in black and white. In addition to Major, Ron was also influenced by Henry Schwartz and George Nick, who were, as he said, expressionists in the way emotion is felt in their work. As teachers, they focused on seeing and doing, and they didn't talk about how to do something, but left that up to their students. And both were models of how to make a life as an artist. After working outside of the arts for 5 years, Ron realized he missed art and went back to school, to museum school, now part of Tufts, to finish a BFA and MFA in printmaking and painting. Henry Schwartz was his biggest influence there, and he spent a summer on scholarship at the Skowhegan School for Painting and Sculpture up in Maine. Ron worked at Software Arts, the inventors of VisiCalc, the first spreadsheet I think a lot of us might remember, and he then transitioned to what became over 30 years of project management and HR work in the software industry with Lotus and IBM. And finally, in 2010, he retired from IBM, got back into painting by taking a class with George Nick, a teacher who profoundly inspired him. And I think we're all gifted when we have someone like that who really makes such an impact on our learning. He now teaches painting and drawing at Concord Art and an independent painting class at the Danforth School in Framingham. So I'd like to welcome Ron. I'd also like to thank Nikki for modeling. She is modeled, I see a bunch of classmates here. She's modeled for us in the past. She's marvelous at what she does. I think it's a real gift when you have a model who can connect so well with an instructor. So I want to welcome Ron. I want to thank him for coming. I want to thank Christina, his wife, for joining us, and to thank all of you for spending your Sunday afternoon with us.
Scott, thank you very much for
Right here.
thank you very much for inviting me to do this. I looked at the website for the Wellesley Society of Artists. What an impressive group of people, and I'm glad to be able to see some real things in the show today. We're going to move this out of the way. I've never done exactly this before. And I bet Nikki hasn't modeled in front of this many people before. She was willing to come without clothes, but the library didn't say okay. I've put some drawings on the wall. I'm going to actually draw today, and the reason why we had you bring along things to draw is in case you want to draw along. Don't feel obligated to, and don't necessarily follow what I'm doing. What I'm going to try to do is share with you some things that I think are not talked about enough in the idea of practice in art. I have a lot of musician friends, and you're always aware with them that they practice a lot. But so many people who are interested in art think each time at the canvas or each time at the drawing board is simply a time to make something, to produce something final. In art school, you spend hours and hours and hours drawing from the figure, and I think part of that, of course, is because people want to put figures in their paintings, but for people who don't put figures in their paintings, it's equally valid as a way to practice. There's a definition of drawing that I kind of like. It's drawing is simply how tall, by how wide, by what angle. And if you think about it, it's just talking about the fact that drawing is all about relationships, and the figure is an endless variety of ways to see relationships. So what I'm going to do today, nothing I'm going to do will take more than 10 or 15 minutes. I've got one exercise for you, but you don't have to do it. And most of the drawing is going to be very quick. I put some things up on the wall because I might not be able to draw today. It happens sometimes. Everything comes out bad. So these are some things that are between 30-second and 5-minute drawings. And it's something I try to do a lot. In art school, we drew from the model maybe twice a week for 3 hours each time. In college, I drew once a week for 3 hours. Always big and always lots of fast poses. So let's begin. Nikki, we'll start with, what do we start with? Oh, I forgot one thing. I'm going to talk about the 4 areas of practice. I'm going to talk about are 1, gesture. And in gesture drawing, what you're trying to do is get at what the figure is doing, not what it looks like, if that makes any sense. You're trying to get at almost your own bodily feeling in identifying with what the model's doing, and let that come through your eye and your hand without your brain intervening. In drawing with straight lines, which is something that people have been sort of doing since at least the French Academy and probably the Italian Academy before that, where you reduce squiggles, basically contours, to a series of straight lines where you're really focused on where the line breaks, where there's a change in direction and where there are overlaps. And then contour drawing, which is something that most people do, or they think they're doing when they're drawing what they think of as lines on the figure. But contour drawing, the way I'm going to talk about it, is more of a paying attention only to what you're seeing and not worrying so much about what's on the page. And finally, I think notan, it's a Japanese design principle of designing in just two values, usually black and white. I think notan is the best way to simplify the world, which you always have to do if you're painting it or drawing it. So I invite you to watch and listen and draw along if you want to, but don't feel obligated. So Nikki, we'll start with 5 30-second poses, and give me a little bit of time to take the paper down in between. I'll stop every once in a while for questions. Maybe I'll put the mic here and see if it... Say that again? Yes, a little. Okay.
I'm just going to just...
Oh, will that work as a mic?
Try it. Just, yeah.
Turn this one off. Okay, I'm just working with charcoal. I like big chunks of charcoal, but any kind of soft charcoal that smudges easily and erases easily is nice.
So 30
Okay.
seconds, right?
Okay, so we're just going to go through 30 seconds. 30 seconds is not a lot of time, and what I'm going to be trying to do is, let's see, go back a little bit more, and yeah, you can move the chair back against the wall. Let's get the light on you too, that might. No, you can go back a little bit. Good.
Anyone that's drawing, feel free to move your chair so you can see too, or you can draw in a better location.
Okay.
Good to go?
You're going to time me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah. 3 seconds. The whole idea of fast stuff is to warm up. I'm trying to get myself to be less self-conscious and to let my hand and eye work together, and to not be thinking too much. In these fast ones, I try to get the whole figure on because it helps me see all the relationships better. Sometimes I try to let my hand follow what I think my eye is doing as I kind of survey the entire figure.
One more time, Ron?
Sometimes I try to act as if my hand can go along with my eye, like just do what my eye is doing. How many is that then? More? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel a little bit more warmed up, and that's all that one can expect from.
Were those 30 seconds?
Those were 30 seconds. Okay, now let me check my agenda here. We're going to go on to 5 more drawings, and these will be between, well, I think we'll do just 3 probably. These will be between 1 and 3 minutes, and Nikki's going to decide how long they are. I like to do this with classes because I'm going to start as if it's a 1-minute drawing, and then I'll use the rest of my time to add or correct if there is more time. So Nikki will decide based on whether her body can take it or not, whether to hold the pose for 1 or 3 minutes.
And your goal for the 1 to 3, Ron, how is that different from the 30-second goal?
In the 30-second goal, I'm just warming up.
Yeah.
In the 1 to 3 minutes, I want to be able to warm up, get something down that gets to gesture, but also have some time to look again and correct some relationships that I never come out right in those 30 seconds.
Thank you.
Drawing is mostly correction. Often I find myself looking from the head all the way down to the feet to figure out what's going on. Drawing's often a matter of kind of feeling something out, kind of finding it in the paper, rather than copying anything specific in the figure. I hope this is more interesting than watching paint dry. Often notice things like, a line from hand to hand, where would it be? One of those relationships that will help. Yeah. You decide. Put over here. One more. Okay. Okay.
Ron, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
When you quicker sketches, if you realize your head is too small, trunk is too wide, legs are too short, whatever, are you course correcting, or are you simply just saying, this is just a quick sketch, I'm trying to be as free as possible, I'm not going to worry too much about?
Yeah, I'm course correcting. I'm looking at sizes and just drawing over what I had before. The next thing we're going to do is, let's see. Did I forget it? We're going to look at straight line relationships. Is that what I was going to do next? I think so. Take a longer pose for this, Nikki. Let's see, it'll be 10 or 15 minutes. If you're timing it, tell me when 10 is up. There are many times that the quick drawing kind of doesn't get at certain things that you can see very readily if you hold the straight edge up to the figure. Like we all know what vertical and horizontal are. And if you look at, and you won't be able to see it from my point of view, but if I look at Nikki's arm, I can tell that it's really at that angle. You know, I can see it very clearly. Some codes I have. But I might not, in drawing quickly, I might not find that angle. So one way of practicing, and again, we're talking about practice the whole time here. One way of practicing is to let yourself draw only in straight lines, where you only get those angular relationships right. One thing that people do when they're trying to do this is they point their straight edge or their pencil into space that way. So, for example, if I'm looking at the edge of this wall up here where the wall meets the ceiling, I might hold my straight edge up like that, but that's not going to help me because I can't put that into the paper. But if I hold my straight edge up as if I'm looking through a piece of glass and I tip it, then I can take that angle and reproduce it on the paper. So I'm going to draw for a few minutes, and I'll be patient about when the drawing starts to come together. And some of the straight lines that I'll be seeing will be in the figure, like along this arm, and some of the straight lines will be between points, like between the tip of Nikki's head and her elbow, or between her head and her foot, to understand those relationships. And I'm not going to draw anything that I don't literally steal from the figure. Let's see if this tool... You'll be able to see this better.
Are you saying you're not going to draw any curves, you're just going to draw lines?
I'm just going to draw lines, and I'm paying attention to the direction of forms and to relationships between parts. And again, you often wouldn't draw like this except to practice seeing angles. The other thing I'm looking at is if that's her arm, I can look where the continuation of that arm would hit her head, and it comes to just above her eye. And I can kind of make a mental note of that. And sometimes, like, now I'm looking at the relationship between her shoulders. I'm closing one eye when I do this. And I'm kind of looking at what's on the page to decide where to go next. I'm looking at the whole time I'm doing it, I'm kind of looking at it as a drawing and seeing where the paper needs some more action. And it'll look all the way from the middle of her head to her foot. So I think I got that wrong. It's out here somewhere. Is that enough for you? Is something starting to look like a figure there yet, or should I keep going? Yeah.
How do you know how much big is should be the size of a 90 as compared to the previous one?
Yeah, you don't.
Then,
You take a guess and then you correct it. You take a guess, make it longer than it is, and then try to find another relationship that tells you where to end it. So, for example, this is the line of the side of Nikki's body over here. I don't know how long that is, but I know it's in that direction. And then, if I look at the line across where her top meets her skirt, I can take a guess where that is by looking where I put the elbow over there. But it's a constant going over what was wrong and putting a new line in, constant juggling of the relationship.
That's 10 minutes, right?
I'll go just a little bit more and then we'll. So, for example, I didn't know where to put her hand over here. But now that I've got this hand, and I'm just going to trust this one because it looks sort of okay. I'm going to find the relationship between where this hand is and where the other hand is. I was just looking at it there. So that tells me this other hand is going to be over here. And I don't know if that's right until I see some more. Let me get the line of her knuckles. And then now that I've got this hand somewhat in here, I see that it connects to her leg over here. And so some of this that I had before was wrong, but I'm gradually going to just go over it. And again, it's practice. It's not to make a drawing like this. It's to get used to looking across the figure and seeing relationships rather than trying to take any contour, any edge, and follow it and try to reproduce it. We're notoriously bad at that, except once I saw, it was at the Danforth, a 12-year-old girl. It was at like an open house day. She came in, we had a figure model, and she just started at the top, worked her way around, and it was amazing. And there's also a YouTube of a guy who can do that. His name is Stephen White, I think. But he's got some other problems. And, at first, I'm broadly indicating where parts are, and I can gradually find more variation in the lines, and they'll only be straight lines, but at some point enough straight lines will make a curve. But at the beginning, they're just straight. Anyway, so I mean, if I'm not, you can sort of see where it's going. I could keep going. Okay, how are we doing on time? 2:30. I think that's enough for that. The next thing I'm going to invite you to do, I'm going to draw for Nikki, and I'm going to do a blind contour drawing for 5 minutes. A blind contour drawing is where you're looking at the edge, a place where forms meet or the forms meet the area around them, and you're not looking at your paper at all. So if you can see Nikki, you can draw from her while I draw. If you can't see Nikki, just put your hand in front of you, position yourself so that you cannot see your paper. And the idea is to so completely be in touch with what your eye is seeing that you feel as though you're touching what you're drawing. This comes from, there's a book by Keeman Nicolaides. He had a huge influence on the teaching of drawing where I went to school. And it's the only book that stresses practice. It's the only book I've seen that stresses practice. Most books give you like tips and tricks and how to do this and a process for drawing a figure. He lays out, spend a half an hour doing this, spend 3 hours doing that on Wednesday. On Thursday, spend 2 hours doing this, 10 minutes doing that, and 30 minutes doing that. So he lays it out the way a musician would say, practice your scales for this many minutes and so on. So that's the approach I like for 2 reasons. One is that it takes the pressure off of what you're doing. You're not trying to make something each time you draw. You're doing it because you like doing it. And you like practicing seeing and seeing for drawing. Okay, let's take this off. And Nikki, if you can do, it might be a little less than 5 minutes, but let's try for 5 minutes. If you see the audience getting antsy, tell me, and we'll stop. Use something with like a pencil or a pen. You can't erase. And focus on just some area, because you're going to go as slowly as, and try not to discuss Nikki too much, but you're going to go as slowly as if a snail were crawling down this contour, if that's the contour you're drawing. So don't look at your paper. If you really think you have self-control, throw it away before you look at it. So you're just doing it for this pure act of seeing and only seeing. You're not trying to make something, you're only seeing. And I'll do it up here. I'll have to position myself a little differently. Okay. Ready? Try not to go faster than I am. And I'm trying to feel as though my eye, which is followed by my pen, is actually touching what I'm looking at. Really notice things about the contour that you don't notice in any other way. And Christina, who's here, will tell you that I sometimes do this while we're watching TV. She's watching TV and I'm when you come to a place where two forms cross, just take a guess. There'll be places where the edge you're following dips into the form. And I hear the audience getting into. When you get good at this, your drawings never get to look really good, but you do get to be able to sustain the concentration better. When I do this in classes, I usually have people sit closer. I always ask Nikki if it's okay if people breathe on it. Okay. So I'm going to do what I said. I'm not even going to look. So that's rarely, I would say that's something that I never do in the context of drawing for a painting or actually drawing. It's something I do often for practice. Something I do when actually drawing is what I'm going to do next. This will be another 5 minutes or so. This is a modified line contour, and the only difference is that most of the time I'm going to spend looking at Nikki. But when I come to a place where I need to lift my pencil and do something else, take on a new form, I'll look and position my pencil right. And I'll do a little bit of looking back and forth, but it's the same idea. There's a difference between a contour and an outline. Like if I draw two apples like this, you don't know which apple's in front and which apple's behind. That's an outline. It's a silhouette. As soon as I do this and this and this and this, you start to see that this apple's in front and this apple's behind. The same thing happens on forms when Nikki's hand is on top of her leg, where her finger comes in here, the finger's on top, and you know that by what happens at that overlapping point when the two forms come together. They don't just kiss each other, one cuts in like this might be the finger and this might be the leg. So a modified contour drawing, another 5 minutes or so. Okay. And when I'm not trying to get the whole figure on when I'm doing these. I'm just picking some place where I want to start. And I do go a little bit faster. So that's an arm, and now I'm going to go to where her arm joins her body. And it's very tricky to figure out what's happening in here. I have to look really hard. Often something looking, that kind of looking will happen somewhere partway through a painting where you'll realize, I didn't see well enough what form was crossing what and what was happening, and you'll need to spend that time just straight looking and figuring out what's going on.
For those of us who do mostly landscapes and seascapes, do you feel like these observational skills of the form better inform our sketching for that?
I do. I mostly do still life. I don't do a lot of figure painting, but nothing is as good practice as drawing from the figure. And all the same things that happen in other forms, like the way hills connect to one another, the way trees grow, they're all there are analogs for all those in the way the body's put together. Okay, let's see what's next. How are we doing on time? We're still okay, right? Okay, let's see.
Ron, do you want to drink right?
Yeah, water would be great. When you're getting ready to paint something, or to do a longer drawing of something, it often helps to kind of preview what you're doing. And the best way I know how to do that is with a viewfinder. It's a way of cropping what you're seeing. My first thought about viewfinders when I was growing up was that it was cheating. When I didn't have to use something like that. And then two things changed my mind. One is There's a letter from Van Gogh to his brother Theo in his diary, and there's this great passage where he says, "I'm so excited, Theo. The blacksmith made me a frame today, and I just stick it in the ground in front of me, and there's my painting." I forget how he put it. He put it a little more elegantly, but so that made it okay. And then George Nick was showing me a viewfinder he had made out of wood with a grid inside of it that he used when there's a painting of his in the State House where you have all these columns, rising up, and there's this incredible perspective stuff going on. And he said, I just took my viewfinder and went around looking. But what you have to know about a viewfinder is that you want to make it the same proportion as the canvas you're going to work on.
I was going to say, I volunteer at the Garden Museum in Boston.
Yeah.
And we pass out viewfinders to any guests who wish to draw. So it's still
okay,
being used.
okay. Yeah, it's very helpful. So the thing to know is that any viewfinder I can lay along this diagonal will be the same proportion as this particular piece of paper. So if I lay this up here like this, right at the edge, and I get it to be the same diagonal, this would be one size I could look through. If I want it smaller for some reason, and I lay it up here against this diagonal, looking through this, whatever I can see through this is going to fit on this paper. So I've pre-made this to look at Nikki, and I've pre-made these spaces. And what I'm going to do is try several different compositional ideas before I decide which one's going to be for the painting. So, and you call these thumbnail sketches, or there's different ways of doing them. Hopper has done a lot of them, of his paintings and for his paintings. Anything I can see through here would be a composition. And then the tricky part, of course, is how do you, because you don't have Van Gogh's thing of the blacksmith frame in the ground. So the way I'm going to think about this is, first I'm going to make my selection of what I can see through here. And then I'm going to look for where Nikki is in relation to the rectangle. So I see her head, the center of her head, is about a third of the way across the top and very close to the top. And her hand is about a fifth of the way up the side. And she's pretty well centered. So I'm going to kind of remember that, and I'm going to draw one compositional idea in here like that. Her hand was down here, her head was over here. And once I've located a few points, and her leg comes up like that, right about. Once I've located a few points, then I can draw in the figure. And I'm just going to draw it as a simple black and white composition, so that I can evaluate it next to the other ones I choose and decide which one's going to be the final one. And I don't have to draw the figure very accurately or very fully in order to make a decision. So let's see. So I think I'm going to I'm just thinking in big shapes of dark and light. Knowing that there'll be more variation in the tones when I finally do something further. Okay, that's one. It's, like an organizational idea, not a finished drawing. That's one. You stay in the same pose, Nikki. I'm going to take another idea, and eventually I'll choose among them. Yeah.
So Ron, the purpose of the viewfinder is to create a composition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a selection, you could say.
Okay.
And it's exactly the same way you would take your camera out into the world and say, now I'm going to snap the shot.
Okay. So it helps you narrow down what you're going to focus on.
Yeah. What I see a lot of people do is they'll come to a place like this and they'll say, oh, I'm going to draw the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll put a little tiny Nikki over here and the light over here and so on. And they weren't thinking about it as a composition, as, what's important to me there.
Ron,
Yeah.
I have a question on this.
So basically the rectangle thingy,
Yeah.
that's basically like the full-on painting at the end, like.
Yeah, if you take this and hold it in a certain shape and look around at things and look at it as if you're looking at the surface of it, not through it, but you're looking at the surface as if it was a painting or a photograph right away. Hold it a little further from your eye. Anything you see in there could be a painting.
So this is basically the finished product, that's what I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you can also do what Bob's doing out in nature. My hands are pretty big, so I can go like that. And there's some other way to do it too. So I'm going to do one more and then move on. Okay. Okay, this time I'm going to try to see what happens if I try to get her whole figure in. Okay, now, see her feet at the bottom. Her head's about a third of the way over this way. Head's over there somewhere. One foot's about less than a quarter of the way up here. The other foot's about here. And her back is over here, so if I was going to do her whole figure, And again, it's just to give me an idea of the composition in order to be able to choose which way I'm going to continue. Okay, that gives, you could go through and do lots of these, but that gives me an idea. I can look at those two and I can say which one, as a basic organization, do I like better. Okay.
You can do it like that. And why?
That's a good question. I think I would probably go with this one. I don't know. No, I don't know. I wish I could give the right answer. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do. Do we still have a few minutes? Okay. Anyone want to leave now? No. We're okay? Okay.
You got the die-hard here.
Okay, good. So the last thing I'm going to do is talk about or show you what beginning of painting might be like. Sort of using some of the things we talked about. Yes, I'll no, I want to have somebody to put this on. I wonder if this will work on here. It works. I use gloves when I paint, not because I'm afraid of the paint. It's because I like to eat. And it's really fast to take off the gloves and guess I need to eat.
While you're painting?
Well, in between. Yeah, you don't want cat in.
Yeah.
So this is a surface that's not too absorbent, and I'm just going to use monochrome and, yeah, you can. So let's assume that I've already done the viewfinder thing and I kind of know what I'm going to do. But let's assume also that
What are you painting on? What is that?
it's actually a piece of Bristol board that's been coated with acrylic medium so that the oil paint doesn't seep in.
Oh, you paint the oil, use the oil?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So if I'm lucky, I put enough on there. Yeah, it can be taken off.
Okay.
So you remember how I was drawing fast? That, depending upon the mood that I'm in, that could be the way I might start a painting too. I just looked at, if that's where Nikki's head is, sort of in that direction. Where is her foot in relation to her head? Or her knee, rather. It's right below. Straight down. And I often think about the beginning of the painting very much like those little noton drawings. What's the pattern of dark and light that I'm interested in? And what's nice about charcoal and this kind of loose paint on a non-absorbent surface is that you can change your mind. Changing my mind is very important to me. And everything we talked about with the angles, I'm kind of doing here, but without the straight edge. I'm looking at, shoulder to shoulder. The lower part of Nikki's top. An angle of, and sometimes I'll just go out and find the angle out there. And lots of changes and corrections along the way. So I'm looking, here's the side of her arm. If I continue that, goes right up the back of her head. Again, that's what the practice with the straight lines and the ruler does, where you get you to start seeing things that way. This brush is 50 years old. And the practice with contour, it's getting me to notice things like, how does her lower arm what happens at the joint between her lower arm and her upper arm? Oh, here.
Is there a reason what kind of brush would you use to make this preliminary drawing?
You could use anything. I happen to like this because it's not very precise. You know,
So
it has a mind of its own. Yeah.
So a mop brush would do that.
Yeah, but sometimes, you know, it's kind of mood related. Sometimes I'll take a, you know, a very nice sable brush
Okay.
and use it. You know, so I know this joint here is very important. I like working like this because it postpones commitment to any one form so that I can make sure it's in the right place before I go into too much detail. Like I haven't really dealt with Nikki's cute little nose there. Okay, it's getting to be 3 o'clock. I'm going to leave some time for questions.
And on that photo for the first scan, I watched that.
This is just burnt sienna, yeah. But you know, you could use anything
Right.
that was a transparent color.
Right.
And I want to locate that hand in relation to her head. It's over here a little more than I thought it was. And again, sometimes I'm thinking in these straight lines before I figure out where the curves are. I want to get the directions of the forms. That angle, this angle. Where does the angle of her hips come in relation to here? How far to the left of her elbow are her hips in this pose? And let's do a little bit more and then we can have questions. The space between her legs is vertically kind of aligned with this edge here. Does that give you enough of an idea? And if things weren't going well, you can just change your mind. And sometimes that leaves you with something really, really good to work with afterwards.
Oh boy.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
So would you use that as an underpainting, and then how long do you have to wait before you go back in?
If you use it, if you play with it a bit, so you get familiar with the properties of your paper and how much Amsol you use with the paint, you can paint right into it.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't mind a little bit of it blending into your paint, and especially if you paint thickly, so you just
Right.
put more paint
This
on
is a
it.
pretty thin wash.
Yeah, this is pretty thin, but otherwise you could wait a day. Yep. Say again? Oh, draw more, paint more. I used to like to draw more, but now I like to paint more. When I was your age, I didn't do any painting at all, and I never used, well, when I was your age, I did. Later on, I stopped using color, so I didn't paint at all. I did drawing and etching for a number of years. But when I was your age, I did mostly drawing, I think. Yep.
So if we don't have access to live models, how is a sketching from a photograph different than sketching using live models?
Look at me, close one eye, okay? And now close the other eye and tell me what moves around. No, now open the other eye. You didn't use one, close one, and then close the other. Things move around. The relationship, if you have one eye closed and you look at me, where's my thing, well, where's my arm in relation to my head, and then close the other eye. The difference is in binocular vision, you sense the roundness of things. From a photograph, everything is flattened. From light, with Nikki here, every time I move a little bit left and right, I'm sensing something that I can choose. I can actually put parts of her together that in the photograph there would only be one way, and I have choices. The photograph is flattening the world for you, and it's doing it in a very arbitrary way that isn't really like human seeing. We accept it as being real because we've been so brought up with photographs and they look so real. But did you ever look at a photograph you took of something right after you were looking at it, and you go, wait, that's not what I was looking at?
You don't feel it.
Yeah, you don't feel it. You don't feel it.
But then when you paint, you are again putting a 3D figure to a 2D figure. So for the third person, it is again a flattened thing. It is not.
Say again.
So when you are painting, even using a live model, you
Yeah.
are putting a 3D structure to
Yeah.
a 2D structure.
Yes.
So for a third person perspective, it
Yeah.
is again a flattened, it is just the artist's vision that we are seeing. We cannot look around it.
No, but the artist has already looked around and has treated the world through their sense of three dimensions. So that George Nick used to say, the world is flat until you paint it. But I want to question your first assumption about access to live models. The 30-minute drawings, I do them in bus stations. I do 2-minute and 5-minute drawings of Christina while she's watching TV. Everybody has access to live models. If we're talking about practice. Yeah. Yep. Anything else? Okay. Thank you.
so much.
Thank you.
For anybody who remembers trying to follow that.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, there's nothing that makes you feel like an artist.
Ron, you're teaching them that.
Before we end that conference,
Thank you so much.